Let's talk for a moment about a topic that I really haven't seen too many people, even very enlightened and fully developed people, talk that much about. And this was something that, this is a concept that I refer to as the sugar bowl. I'm going to tell a story about it in a moment, but first, let me give a very simple and clear example of what it is. Let's say you were wanting to go to Pikes Peak in Colorado. What would the directions be to get there? What's the first thing that comes to your mind? Is it a question? Something along the lines of, well, doesn't that depend on where I'm starting from? In other words, if you were in Los Angeles asking that question, your directions would look a certain way. And if you were in New York asking that question, the directions that the Los Angelino was given would not be helpful for you at all, would it? If anything, it might even send you the wrong way, because if you're coming from Los Angeles, in the most general sense, the answer would be head north and head east, which is the exact opposite of the directions for the New Yorker, which would be head south and head west. This is the concept of the sugar bowl. Several years ago, I had the unique opportunity to be speaking with a beautiful soul, this monk. And he was a monk, is a monk, he's still living. He's a monk of an order who have a very powerful, very enlightened teacher. And through the studying of this teacher's philosophies and principles, there were several times that I had noticed sometimes the teacher seems to say thing A, and sometimes the teacher seems to say thing M that contradicts thing A. What's that about? And so the monk's answer was this. There happened to be, at the place where we were, there happened to be an actual literal bowl of sugar on the table where we were standing. And he slid the bowl to the center of the table between myself and one of my friends, who the three of us were having this conversation. And he asked us both to turn straight ahead. And he said, if you were to ask me how to get to the bowl of sugar, pointing at me, he said, my instructions to you would be to turn right. And then he turned to my friend, who was standing on the opposite side of the bowl, and said, if you were to ask me how to get to the bowl of sugar, my answer to you would be turn left, which is the opposite of what the other one was told to do. And so in this way, armed with this piece of information, as I continued down a path of study and immersion into philosophy, into spiritual understanding, as well as scripture and text and quantum physics, all of those things, I suddenly realized as I was reading, as I was studying, there would be moments where I would get this feeling in my solar plexus, this feeling of tension, almost like a ball, like a knot. And there was one day that I recognized that what that sensation was my light body's response to when I had read something that was the wrong instruction based on my current orientation in relation to the sugar bowl. This internal process has been very, very helpful. So what I wanted to bring up to all of you today and offer is, if you ever find yourself confused by conflicting teachings, understand that this very well could be a sugar bowl situation where one teacher is saying one thing, another teacher is saying seemingly an opposite thing, or in some cases, even the same teacher may be saying a seemingly opposite thing. Does that mean they're contradicting each other? No. No. In the same way we talked about in the previous video with the 3 perspectives of yoga, karma, bhakti, and jnana, that it can be likened to standing on separate sides of a sphere. There is no incorrect perspective. You're looking at the sphere. In that same way, the teacher may not be giving incorrect advice. They may just be giving advice that is more correct for certain people based on their orientation, based on their positioning in relation to that which they are seeking. Whether that seeking is enlightenment, whether that seeking is material wealth, whether that seeking is physical health, whether that seeking is an improvement of relationships. It can be anything. But based on where they are standing, that could be where that answer was coming from. So that doesn't necessarily make it wrong if it doesn't resonate with you. But the reason I bring this up about the sugar bowl is so that if you find yourself in a space where you are feeling frustrated, where you are feeling like you're getting conflicting information, that's great. Sit with that. Perhaps write both of them down and feel which one resonates more clearly with you. Take a moment. Sit with it. Feel which one resonates more clearly with you. Trust your reading. Then trust your reading. Whichever one you pick, trust it. Because the beautiful thing about life is, if it's not right, life will let you know. If for some reason, let's say your instruments are a little bit decalibrated for whatever reason, life will let you know in a language that makes perfect sense to you. This is how we learn to strengthen the muscle of intuition, which is the next thing we're going to talk about. The distinction between intuition versus instinct or gut instinct. Those are 2 very different things. And we'll talk about that next. See you soon.